All right, let's begin day 2 of SEO Week. Welcome everyone to SEO Week 5.0. My name is Heather Dessette, and I am the Marketing and Event Coordinator here at NetElixir. I'll be your host for our series of webinars taking place this SEO Week. Thank you again to our partners at UPS, LizTrack, BrightEdge, Bing, and Google for joining us today on day 2. Also, a special thank you to our clients and all new and returning SEO Week attendees. We appreciate your constant support, and we continue to cover SEO topics today and tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be starting our sessions now. Please remember to add any questions that come to mind in our chat box. Our speaker will answer your questions at the end of today's presentation, which will focus on how to allow search engines to read JavaScript with better indexing and higher ranking. This year, we have a lot of exciting new SEO Week first-timers. For those of you tuning in to this knowledge celebration, I would like to share with you the history behind SEO Week. NetElixir started SEO Week 5 years ago. We launched SEO Week to address the challenges online retailers are facing in SEO, and since it is our specialty, we are passionate about sharing our solutions. Part of NetElixir's core value structure is to constantly share knowledge to the online retail community. Our team is always monitoring the changes landscape in SEO that you'll learn more about in today's presentation. This year, we have some great topics. Yesterday, we covered the change in landscape of SEO. A recording is available for those of you that could not attend yesterday's presentation. Today, we're going to be discussing how to allow search engines to read JavaScript with better indexing and higher ranking. Tomorrow is the last day of SEO Week, where we'll discuss how to understand indexing and how to use technical SEO with the Google Web Console. As a reminder, I'll be here all week, but our speakers do change daily. For our Day 2 SEO Week speaker, I would like to introduce NetElixir's very own Senior SEO Analyst, Angel Nieves.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Angel, for joining us today. Before I introduce Angel fully and give him over for his presentation, I did want to take a moment to talk to you about NetElixir. Here at NetElixir, we are comprised of a team of over 130 fanatically analytical global search marketers dedicated to helping retailers find and acquire new customers online. Since 2004, our data-intensive approach and deep retail expertise have delivered success for hundreds of brands in a highly competitive marketplace. For our first poll question, we would like to know how familiar you are with JavaScript resources on your site. So if everyone can, please take a moment to answer the poll question you see up on your screen. All right, it looks like we have a couple beginners, but I'm sure after this session, you'll all be an expert. So without further ado, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Angel Nieves.
Hello, everyone. Glad everyone can make it to today's presentation. So just to start us off, I wanted to kind of paint a picture to kind of showcase the topic and show you, exactly where this is going and the experience that we've had at NetElixir to overcome a lot of these issues with JavaScript. And kind of going to how that's being crawled and how these two play a part with one another. So we worked with a client that was not getting proper rankings in their organic visibility. Their website was not being indexed. They went through a whole website redesign, and they still had the same issue with their website or their pages, URLs, what have you, were not being indexed. Even Google Search Console was not fetching the pages properly. And ultimately, we resulted into this issue being more towards the JavaScript code that was within the site. So we were able to narrow it down and figure this out and see that, it wasn't rendering properly. So why is this important? Why is this a big deal? Well, the JavaScript resources were not rendering efficiently. Crawlers could not see the site's content, and in turn, mobile speed is being affected. So, what is JavaScript? What is crawlers? Why are we discussing them today? and what is the correlation with one another. So as we see here, JavaScript is a computer programming language. You can use it to create interactive effects such as drop-downs, e-commerce functionalities such as dynamic content generation. You can also use it to add more functionality to your shopping cart. Your search bar, you can add more functionality to dynamically have searches populate. So there's a lot of things you can use JavaScript for, which is why it's very popular and used amongst a lot of developers, as well as it being easily inserted within the HTML of a web page. Now, web crawler is just that. It's a crawler, also known as a spider or a bot. It's pretty much a program that's going to visit your website, read the information that's on your website, index that or create entries into the search engine's index to allow people to actually find that content on your site. So what is the biggest takeaway from these two, and why are they relevant to one another? Well, if your JavaScript is not executing properly, the crawler is not going to be able to see any of that content on your site, thus leading into you losing potential customers, increasing your bounce rate, and ultimately negatively affecting your user experience. So what are the expectations and the purpose of this presentation? Well, as I showed you the correlation between the JavaScript and the crawlers and why they're important, and the experience that we went through and how they kind of showcase one another and correlate with the same issues. At a time where the UX is very crucial to Google's inability to read the website, can be crippling to which is why it is necessary to correctly code the website. Excuse me. So if bots are unable to properly understand what your consumer journey is throughout the web pages, then the page does not render correctly, then you're going to have poor rankings, poor performance, the website visibility, and all digital channels will be negatively affected. So we're going to show you I'm going to show you or discuss a few points also later on in the presentation that'll show you how to troubleshoot and test your site to see how JavaScript heavy your website is or is not, and some of the actions you can take to resolve those issues, and some solutions for that issue as well. So some of the big questions you're going to want to ask yourself and your developers: what resources are actually using JavaScript on our site? At what point are these sites, as our site actually rendering those scripts? Are they actually important scripts that are being rendered? Are the functions that we need crucial to the site functionality? So are these being prioritized in any way? Are we using them on just the mobile site or the desktop version of our website? These are a bunch of questions you're going to want to discuss and analyze with your developers, because when it comes down to it, Google recommends that for the website to be less than 10 JavaScript requests being rendered on your site. If more are being rendered on the website, then the speed is ultimately going to be affected. So most developers tend to utilize JavaScript, I would say, in a very lazy manner, adding it as needed rather than not realizing the overall effect on the website in terms of organic and site speed. So you want to make sure your developers can answer the above questions when a website is being developed, and make sure they just prioritize a lot of these JavaScript resources so that from the start, or whether you're planning on redesigning your website or just ultimately doing a facelift, you can have those functionalities in place which will help you in performance across the board. So relating SEO and JavaScript. So the reasons we keep asking developers to reduce any of these rendering requests that we see in our mobile speed audits is just that, is because if the code is loading slow, it's going to impact the performance, specifically the organic performance. So if your JavaScript is slow, the website will perform slow, and ultimately the bots will not crawl it effectively. So as one of our well-known SEO gurus of Google, John Mueller, he clearly stated that recently, if the website is not rendered within 2 seconds, there's a high probability that the crawler will actually bounce off of your website and not index the site within that wave. Now, when I say wave, you may not know what that is, or you may know what that is, but I have a little diagram here kind of explaining exactly how that kind of works. So we have the site search engine crawler, and that's the first wave of indexing. So it's going to essentially crawl your site, gather all the content that it needs to see what's on your site, and then go ahead and index it. At that time, the next phase is going to be rendering. So as the resources are becoming available, that's when the second wave of indexing has occurred. So if it's too heavy as far as JavaScript loading time on your website, it's not going to be indexed in the first wave, and you cannot be sure when the second wave is even going to occur, thus losing any content or any rankings that might be present if you were trying to rank for that content. So yeah. Okay, so kind of moving on, one of the common crawl issues with JavaScript is going to be kind of what I've been reiterating and kind of been stressing this whole presentation because it's a very common issue and we've seen a lot of our clients. And the one we have the most experience with dealing with is the dynamic nature of JavaScript. Google's not going to always be able to consistently crawl that on your website. So they can crawl JavaScript, but depending how it's implemented, like I mentioned earlier, and how it's prioritized, how fast it renders, it's not going to see all of that content at once. So the fact that your organic performance in today's digital space is as good as your developer is huge. We almost immediately see a performance improvement when technical issues like these are resolved. So a lot of the time it's not the content or the lack of optimization on the page causing a negative effect on the organic performance. It's actually the technical health of the website that's at fault. So to simply put, if bots cannot read the website due to JavaScript issues, regardless of the work the SEO team does, they will not see the impact of performance and the return on investment as intended. So now, going into how you actually want your JavaScript to be executed, there are a few methods that you can. Today we're going to go into a little bit about PRERENDER and how that is going to allow for proper indexing of your content. So not to get too technical on this, what essentially the PRERENDER service is going to do, it's a middleware that you install your server, and what it's going to do is if a bot is coming to your website, they're going to pre-render any of your JavaScript requests and actually serve an HTML version of your page to that bot. So if it's an actual user, they're going to serve the normal requests that are getting sent to that server. So the biggest thing here is to make sure that the bot is receiving all the information they can without any information being lost and allowing all your content to be crawled. So it's a dynamic solution to allow that to happen. So it allows all the content to actually be properly indexed, and it's smart enough to know whether it's a bot or whether it's a user coming to the site. Going on to some of the pre-render benefits, as explained before, pages are going to be rendered about twice as fast when you're implementing this service. That's going to include things like your time to first byte is being reduced, so that's going to go into your mobile speed. Memory is going to become more efficient and be able to be allocated appropriately. Just overall, cleaning up the code will allow the mobile speed performance and the user experience to improve. Now, with PRERENDER being its own entity and being open source software, this allows for a lot of flexibility and allows it to be implemented in a lot of different sites that are not all using the same libraries of JavaScript. So your next steps following this presentation, you're going to want to look at these key things here. So determining how heavy your website's JavaScript resources are and the purposes that actually affect on your site, whether it's content being dynamically generated, visual effects, cart functionality, or search functionality. You want to determine what resources you actually do need and what resources are actually prioritized. Maybe some do not all need to be served, whether it's on your mobile or your desktop version of your site. Those are things you want to ask yourself and your developers. Reviewing in your Search Console for any page rendering issues is going to be a key way to find out how your page is being fetched by any of the Google bots and allowing you to see what the search engine or the crawler sees. So in addition to that, you can also use crawling tools such as Screaming Frog that can also aid in troubleshooting this as well. Another method to troubleshoot this, you want to be able to disable your JavaScript in your browser, which can help you lead to what is actually properly being rendered when you disable this in your Chrome or any browser of your choice, and to make sure it's properly being executed on your website. So of course, things like even minimizing your JavaScript requests, this is also going to go hand in hand to page speed as well. So for example, kind of going back to the Search Console page rendering issues, you can actually input the URLs specifically to your page on your site and actually see, what the bot is actually looking at when you're crawling. So this is going to give you a nice heads up exactly what the experience like for the bot while they're crawling your site, and give you a nice call out to specifically what resources actually need to be optimized, reduced, removed, or even be looked at. If you do speed tests such as like web page tests, page speed insights, Chrome dev tools, those are also good ways you can use to determine what JavaScript resources are taking longer to load or render on your page, which also could be addressed as well. Now, implementing a pre-render service is also part of Google's dynamic rendering guidelines. So this is something Google actually recommends for sites that are using JavaScript. So it's definitely something you would want to pass by through your developers and have them take a look at.
All right, it looks like it's time for another poll question. So have you ever had crawling issues on your site related to JavaScript? Please take a moment to answer the poll question that you see on your screen. All right, it looks like a couple of you, it's 50-50. Some of you had some issues, but we want to thank Angel today for his presentation, and we hope you enjoyed today's topic. Something that you can expect this upcoming week, we have one more webinar coming up. It's going to be with our SEO director, Hala Ali. She will be discussing the technical SEO using Google Web Console to understand indexing. So as you send in your questions for Angel, I do want to remind everyone that NetElixir not only offers services in SEO, but we also offer a variety of solutions, such as paid search, organic search, paid social, web analytics, consulting and CRO, Amazon, e-commerce, and tech services. As a reminder, we are doing a giveaway this week. We will be giving away one Google Home to a lucky winner. To enter into our contest, all you have to do is invite your friends or colleagues to SEO Week by creating a LinkedIn post sharing our registration link, which is netelixir.com/SEO Week, and make sure to tag NetElixir. Next thing you'll have to do is attend 2 out of the 3 webinars. So if you attended yesterday and today, you should be all set. But if not, you have another opportunity to attend our webinar tomorrow. And you must comment on at least one of NetElixir's LinkedIn SEO daily weekly trivia posts. My name is Heather Dessette once again, and I will be notifying the lucky winner tomorrow afternoon, so don't miss out on this amazing giveaway. Okay, so we're going to open up to your questions. Our first question comes from Robert. Robert asks, are there any restrictions to using the pre-render service?
So as far as restrictions, there is, Robert, there is what do you call it? There is a limit. There's not, some people would like to limit or have asked to limit the number of cache pages that are allowed. But in this case, this will actually be a hard problem for the pre-render service to do, since it would have to send 404s for the rest of the pages that aren't being assigned to have a pre-render request. So the pages also can be rendered on the fly instead of caching. It would have to do both, whether it sees fit. So that's pretty much where, when their service comes into play, that's where they keep the costs down to be able to implement for a lot of these sites, is being able to serve cache pages, which is going to keep the cost down. And the best way to actually limit the number of cache pages is going to be by blacklisting or whitelisting at the middleware level. So since this is middleware, it's probably between the server and your website, so it's right in the middle as far as like where it actually renders requests. So that's really going to be the only restriction there.
All right, it looks like we have another question from Anna. Anna asks, are there some features where you could recommend not using JavaScript, or are there ways that we can cut down on JavaScript usage?
So some ways you're going to want to do this, I mentioned a little earlier. The biggest thing is if you don't need it, you can get rid of it. That's the way to minimize some scripts, but also if a lot of it, you want to prioritize as far as how you're actually having those requests when the page is loading on your website. So you want to minimize as much as possible into maybe one JavaScript file and prioritize actually what scripts are running first. So what is most valuable for the user when that script is being ran.
All right, are there any more questions? Okay, we'll move on to our next slide. We would like to encourage you to sign up for a Google Visibility Crawl Audit. By signing up, you will receive a report showcasing whether your site is properly being rendered by any present JavaScript. If it is, NetElixir will include the best practices and recommend solutions. If it's not, NetElixir can provide more efficient ways to implement these methods and improve your site's page speed based on best practices. So for those of you interested in this special audit, please email us directly at info@netelixir.com and we'll get you all set up. And this concludes day 2 of SEO Week. We hope you enjoyed it and we look forward to seeing you back tomorrow. Have a great day.